Okay, well, everybody, we are so excited for another installment of Infinite Wisdom. And tonight, my guest is a man who's hard to put in any kind of label. He is, as you will listen, you'll hear, he runs the gamut and literally runs the gamut. We're going to talk about that. But I am absolutely honored to be talking tonight, and we are all going to be able to ask questions of Stephen Ross, Ph.D. And you will see him there with his magnificent library. I'm going to highlight him now. And hold one sec. Here we go. And myself. There we go. Um, the thing is that I actually knew about Stephen before I realized I knew about Stephen. I am a big fan of Gaia TV, as many of you have heard me mention. Over the years, I've been following Gaia for, I'm going to say 20 years, something like that, very, very long time. And one of my favorite people to listen to is Regina Meredith. So I went through, where I would not skip one episode. And then there were years, where I was in and out, things like that. So time goes by, and I meet this wonderful woman who I've interviewed here, Sandy Sedgbeer, a wonderful author and a wonderful podcaster and a wonderful human being. And Sandy has been very kind in saying, "Oh, you should interview this person or that person." And she told me, "You ought to interview Stephen Ross." And I said, "Sounds familiar. Okay." So I write to Stephen, and he kindly writes back. And then I started doing my research. And I say, "Okay, well, where can I see an interview with Stephen to start things off?" And there is Regina talking to Stephen. And I went, "Of course, I know who this is." So it's been a long way around, but we are finally in contact, face to face, sort of. And he's in Sedona, I'm in Massachusetts. And I just want to say, Stephen, that the more I learn about you, the more respect I have.
Oh,
Um, I believe that humanity owes you a deep um, vow of gratitude for your life's work, at least part of your life's work. I don't want to say all, because all those books behind you are books that you have lovingly gathered from around the world, really, I think back to the 1400s,
correct. Yes.
and on alternative methods of healing, but not just that, also on spirituality. So we're going to start at the very beginning because I have a question about what happened when you were 19 and how you turned that corner, and but we'll get there in a minute. Where did you grow up? Welcome, by the way.
Eh, Thank you. And what a humbling introduction. And I just want to say I never take interviews for granted. So, Hope, I very much appreciate the opportunity to share with you and your audience. And again, that's quite an introduction, really. Thank you.
None of it's everything is right on the nose. But here we go. So, Stephen, where did you grow up? And tell me about your family structure and the kind of things you were doing as a family. Were you going to church? Were you going to the beach? What was your life like?
Well, I grew up in Southern California, a place called the San Fernando Valley. I was born in 1949. And one thing about being in 49, when you go on any of those computer programs and they ask for your year, I have to scroll and scroll and scroll to get to 49. So that's where I grew up. And I grew up in a Leave It to Beaver family. I had a wonderful mother and father, brother. They used to play music in the house. Show tunes would be playing, both very, very positive. And I just assumed everybody grew up like that. My friends around me had very loving parents also. And it
Mm,
wasn't until I started doing counseling in my 20s that I realized not everybody was as fortunate as I was to be in that kind of loving background. When I was 13 years old, I asked my parents what religion we were, and they said, "What religion do you want to be?" And I didn't know. So they brought in books on different religions, and they said, "If you can explain to us why you want to do that religion, you're free to practice that." And they let me go with neighbors and friends to different religions so that I could have a taste and an understanding. Uh, when I was 16 or 17, I said, what political party are we? And they said, well, who would you vote for? And I go, well, I don't know. And they said, here are the platforms of the candidates, and you would decide which you wanted, and that would be your political party. So I grew up in an atmosphere where I didn't have to unlearn things, I didn't have to jettison beliefs. It was very open, as I mentioned, and loving. And when I was about 21 years old, in my parents' bookcase was a book on Edgar Casey. And I asked my parents about it. They didn't even know how it got in there. They
Ah,
said, we don't know how this book got in there. And I ended up reading The Sleeping Prophet and thinking, oh my gosh. And my parents remarked they really read it for the first time too. They didn't even know it was in their house. And they said, wow, we would have loved to have gone to Edgar Casey, but that started me off on an understanding of more than just the physical world. I went through school on a college on athletic scholarship. I ran 100 meters, 200 meters in track and field. Um, and that experience would lead to my interest in alternative medicine. But one day, about a year after we found the Edgar Casey book, my mom and dad called me to their home. And I see my father laying against a chair with his eyes bugged out. And I said, what happened? And my mom says, oh, we went to a psychic. Now, normally it's the children who are the whack job. And the parents are going, oh, what are you crazy? And I said, a psychic. And they played a tape for me. My dad, who was an engineer at Lockheed, was so overwhelmed by the reading he had from a full trance medium, a man who would go to sleep, you could hear him snoring, but a voice would come through. And the man's name was Ed Monroe. The spirit that came through was called Jock McKinnitree, a Scottish physician from the 1800s. Well, he blew my father's mind out, which is why my dad was like that. And my father comes back and he goes, there is no way anybody could possibly know what was on that tape. So now I'm going to digress a little bit, and I realize I'm already doing something not too smart, continuously talking without you getting a breath. But I just wanted to add my second year at Cal State Northridge, a gardener had left a sprinkler head on our workout track. I didn't see it. I was coming down with my left leg and knew if I hit that, I would really get hurt. But I got hurt anyway because I extended my stride, tore my knee up. It was during the Easter break. Nobody was around, and I crawled on my hands and knees all the way to the trainer's room. They called my coach. I was sent to the sports physician for the Dodgers, the Lakers, the Rams, who said unless I had surgery, I could never compete again. So I'm going to stop here because I've illuminated two trails. I've illuminated the spiritual and then what is going to happen with the physical. And now you can talk, Hope.
I ask the questions, you can
Oh,
talk as much as you want, but I'm
okay.
glad you paused there because you already answered my question. And that's why I asked you to start in the way back because I wondered, and you'll tell the rest of the story. I wondered how you had the wherewithal at 19 years of age to do what you did next. And now I understand a little better. So thank you.
So we'll continue on after I allowed you to speak for 30 seconds. We'll continue on now. When we go to the health part, being sent to the sports visits of the Rams, Dodgers, and Lakers, um, I was sent for a second opinion to UCLA, the university, and I am so old that Kareem Jabbar, the great basketball player, was playing there for UCLA. And Ducky Drake, the trainer, said, "You're going to have surgery." I was very dejected. I go back to my trainer's room, and there's a Popular Mechanics magazine sitting next to a whirlpool. Now, it didn't have anything to do with health, but I read an article in there from Russia. It appeared to be something that might help me. So I call up Dr. Curlin. I'm 19. I go, Dr. Curlin, would this technique work for me? He goes, that's holistic garbage. It's crap. It'll never work. And I said, well, what do you know about it? He says, I don't know anything about that, but this is America, son. And if we don't have it, it's not worth anything. Well, I did it on my own. I missed 4 weeks of training and I ran in nationals that year, finished fifth, and you cannot fake an injury in track and field. I became an All American, but it planted a seed. What other things exist in this world that we in America are not told about? And so I began a journey in health all over the world, discovering what things we don't know about. And that's what ends up with this thousands of books and contacts learning about the things that we are not told about in the United States. Now, concurrently, I've come from my mom and dad, who I thought were nut jobs, going to a psychic. And I listened to the tape and I thought, why did you guys do that? And they said, well, we had met Ed Monroe at a party. We have waited a year to get a reading. And I said, well, did it ever occur to you that maybe in that year he did research on you? And I want to really examine this. Do you know anyone else who may be having a reading? And they go, yes. So I call up this person. I'm 20, 21, and I go, hey, let's check out this Ed Monroe. You have a reading coming up? Yes. I, I think I should just show up with no warning to that person. I have a reading booked 8 months in the future. I know that's a long time, but listen to me. Don't we want to prove that this guy is real? So I'm going to take your reading in 2 days. Just show up at their door. Let's see what happens. So 2 days later, I show up at Ed Monroe. Hi, I'm Steve Ross. I'm taking this person's reading, and they come on in. Ed Monroe lays down. Amazing Grace is played. I'm looking around, and this voice pops through with a Scottish accent. Jock McKinnitree. I had a reading for an hour, and I had my mind blown out. It was beyond belief because He did a physical diagnosis of my entire body, the subluxations on my spine, this vertebrae, left, right, then told me a couple things that nobody would know. And I was an athlete, not only track and field, but also competitive volleyball. And Jock McKinnitree tells me in a past life, you were a Franciscan father and got a little too close to the dark haired Spanish young ladies, and you were excommunicated from the church, and you ended up becoming a blacksmith. You loved horses, and you became a drunk. And now, in this living, you don't drink and you stay away from dark haired women and you go for blondes. And I was like, how could that be? It was true. How could somebody possibly know that? And on my dad's reading, there were 6 characteristics from past lives, and this medium didn't say you were the Queen of Sheba, you were king. Only gave traits and characteristics. Now, my father was told he was working on a bridge. He lost where he was. Someone got his attention. He falls through the hole in the bridge. And before he dies, his last thought is, I hope no one else gets hurt. The medium says, because of that, in this living, you nail, you glue, you epoxy everything. I, on the other hand, is a deck of cards and everything falls apart. And so, what he told my dad and the things he told me were so spot on that I couldn't go anywhere but know there was something more cooking. And at the end of the reading, he tells me all your future guidance would come in your dreams. So we finished the reading, and I'm just 21, and I'm sitting there going, my dreams, I'm going to I'm going to find out everything in the universe. So I go 1 week without sleeping because every night I was going, oh my gosh, maybe I'm going to dream tonight. Now, after 1 week, I was so tired, I did have a dream. In this dream, and I will share it because I hope the audience would like this. In the dream, a book appeared with a finger pointing. The page opens up. It's a picture book of animals, and I hear a voice say, "What kind of animal is Steve?" And it points to an animal. And I wake up from the dream. I recognize the voice, but before I tell you what picture it was an athletic friend of mine. We played 6-man volleyball together. I thought everything was great. So I call up Bob. I go, Bob, is there anything bothering you about me? He goes, no. Is there anything bothering you about me? No. Is there anything? What are you, sick, Steve? What's your problem? I want to be a better person. Yes, there is something that's always bothered me. I, I was shocked. What? Do you remember what you did to our other teammate, Harold? I, no, Bob, I don't. Steve, let me tell you. He was our 7th best player. Every time he came in and made a mistake on the volleyball court, you didn't say anything, but you just glared at him. Now, Bob continues. After the games, Harold and I would go out for pizza, and he would throw up because he couldn't win your approval. And I thought you were a real hog. Guess what the picture was in the book?
A pig.
Yes. And I sat there and go, how's this possible? This is my bed. I thought I had a good relationship. After that, I had 4 to 6 dreams every night for 3 months. My personality, my likes and dislikes, comments on the world, on people, and thus I was into my spiritual pursuits, the health and the spiritual. And now, Hope, please, now you can talk.
Wow, this is what I think is so wonderful is at what a young age these things are happening for you. And if you were a Franciscan monk in a prior life, you probably wanted to get back to the spiritual life again,
Yeah,
right? And
yes.
so you started early. And I just want everybody to know that there's a book here called A Grand Design of Dreams that Stephen wrote with Jeffrey
Wenzel, yeah.
Winsell. And I haven't gotten all the way through it yet, but you've kept track of your dreams for decades, right?
Yeah, yes, almost 50 years. Yes.
And I think, am I right that 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 wasn't the only person who told you that you would get your spiritual guidance in your dream life? Wasn't there a Cherokee, someone?
Well, that was Ed Monroe was a
Oh, he was
Cherokee.
Cherokee.
Yeah, he was a Cherokee Indian in his waking life. And the spirit that came through Jock McKinnitree claimed he was using equipment, and this was 1972, claimed he was using equipment from the year 2060, had 5 other doctors over in the spirit world. And it was interesting because he recommended 3 books that first reading. And then I went back to him a year later with a lot of questions. And during the reading, he said, when my host wakes up, he's to give you to review the 6,000 readings I've given up till now.
Wow.
And I heard 30,000 past lives. I heard questions of everything you could think of. And I'm not saying it's the gospel, but it gave me an accelerated education because I never heard a duplicate past life. Can you imagine all those? It was an accelerated education
I should
on
say,
the spiritual world.
you know, in hearing your story, reading about it, it seems like all the doors have opened for you, uniquely so.
I'm a lucky man. I have
You
I've had a magical life.
you
Yeah.
really you really have. So let's go back to okay, so you've gotten All-American and you've graduated from college in math and science, is that
In
right?
business, yes, I had a PhD in
Oh,
business. Yeah.
okay. So you've got the spiritual life on the one hand, and then what are you thinking you're going to do with these degrees and your intelligence and all of that?
To show you how beautiful our higher selves work, not only was I on athletic scholarship, but at 16, I was investing in the stock market back in the 70s with a place called Glorforgan William R. Stats and was very, very successful. My parents had to sign everything because I was underage. So I assumed when I would graduate, I would be a stockbroker. So when I graduated, I go to Glorforgan William R. Stats. I take their test. We love you. You scored so wonderfully in your personality. We're going to send you to New York for your training in 2 weeks. Well, in that interim time, 3 stockbroking houses go out of business with qualified brokers with clients. And Gloria Forgan calls me up and says, "You're a really nice kid. We can't use you anymore."
Mm.
And so I was devastated. My parents tried to console me. I didn't even want to hear it. I wasn't even nice. I don't want to hear that. It's easy. I was going to be a stockbroker. So I go a different direction, but hope I would have been, I could have never liked people losing money, even if it wasn't my fault. I would not have enjoyed that at all. And I believe everybody who's listening to this, if we really look at our life, the times we always turn left and for whatever reason we turned right or we did something, this is our higher self guidance,
Yeah.
our spiritual loving entities that guide us into the areas where we are going to learn, where we are going to grow, where we are going to face what appear to be challenges, but were creative opportunities to grow. And so um, I didn't end up being a stockbroker. I started a cosmetic company, manufacturing with my mom, which lasted about 8 years, and then ended up starting and working in the World Research Foundation, which is the nonprofit that I started with someone I met, Laverne. And in 1984, we started the World Research Foundation, which part of this library, or this library is a part of. And so I have been guided. I have been blessed. I have had a magical life with esoteric spiritual experiences that would really overwhelm people. And in my book that you showed is not about dream interpretation. There's too many of those. What's in there is my adventures through dreams that led me to various places and experiences. And I would like to stop here and say, my life sounds magical, maybe incredible to some, but I believe all of us, if we really review what's happened in our life, have had that same magic. Why is my life a little different? I did what Nike said. I just did it. When something came through a dream, I just did it. When the spirits spoke to me in my head, do this, touch this person's arm. I just did it. I didn't question. And I believe that may be the difference because people say, oh, you were lucky, or maybe your past lives, you were so and so. I believe we all have had incredible past life experiences. It's what we do now that really is important.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And let's talk a little bit about that guidance system and when you became aware of it for the first time and acted on it. Was it in a dream or was it hearing things? Because did you have a spiritual practice when you were a teenager? Were you meditating or anything like
No,
that? All
no.
right, so take us to when you first became aware of this
Well,
guidance.
I even though I had a sports background and most of my friends were into sports, um, I would I did a lot of reading because off my first session with Ed Monroe, he recommended some books, and from that I kept reading. And I would talk with people, and all of a sudden, people would come to me with questions. I remember taking a woman out on a date, and I was very bashful, young, and we would go out, and she started talking about her problems, and I was going, "Oh my gosh, okay." And people just felt they could talk with me. And so the word got around that Steve had an open ear and some advice. So one night at 1:30, I get a telephone call. There weren't cell phones. And I answer it, and it was a friend of a friend who calling me from a telephone booth. My brother took angel's dust. He's out of control. I've got him in this phone booth and I don't know what to do. And something told me to call you. And all of a sudden, I heard this voice in my head. And then 10 minutes went by. I had no idea what was said or anything else. And I come back and the woman says, "Oh, my brother's calm now. He's back. It's like he didn't take anything." And she hangs up, and I'm laying in my bed going, "What the heck happened there?" And then I heard a voice, and I didn't know if it was a man or a woman. It was one of those voices that could have been either or
Mm.
both. It probably was an androgyny. And I that's when it first started. And then after that, and for all of this time since, I hear the spirits talk. I've given hundreds of presentations, and they speak to me 1 millisecond, and I just repeat their words. Um, and if somebody asks a question or throws me off, I can then rely on my reading until I can pick up their words again. And I'm able to go 2 and 3 hours without, okay, just straight out. But it started from that original time. Now, why did I say just do it? What if I hadn't called Bob? Maybe I would, obviously, I think I still would be in this field, but I just did it. Something told me to do it. And the question is, do we listen to that higher guidance?
Mhm.
The guidance is always there. There's no time in the spirit world. They're with us. Our life in there is quicker than a snap of a finger. They're always there. It's we who blank it out or don't listen to this incredibly beautiful guidance that is around.
Yeah, I agree. We have a unlearning to do, and as you said, you didn't have to go through a lot of that unlearning. You chose your parents very well. Congratulations.
I did.
Okay, let's talk. Give us an example, please, of hearing the guidance either in a dream or in the other way you described, that took you on a journey and you find some kind of healing modality that you didn't know about.
Hey there. Sorry to interrupt. I hope you're really enjoying the conversation. I just wanted to take 30 seconds to let you know that 30 minutes can change your life. How? By signing up for a dowsing session with me. I've had many people enter sad, enter scared, and exit thrilled and with a path forward. If you want to know how to get through the next juggernaut in your life, sign up for a dowsing session with me. Spread Infinite Hope, click on Sessions. I'll see you later.
Okay, so I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, but there was a very famous bookstore in the LA area called the Bodhi Tree Bookstore.
Mm.
Many actors and that famous people will remark that they would go to the Bodhi Tree. You're smiling, maybe you heard about
I,
it.
I lived in LA when it was still there.
Oh, okay. Well, the Bodhi tree was big. So one night I have a dream. Now, I was studying and gathering information on color therapy, a man named Dinshaw Gadali, and the spectrochrome healing system, one of the greatest healing systems of all time. So I have a dream to go to the used bookstore of the Bodhi tree, go to a particular bookcase and reach behind the books that are there. And it was like, wow, that is bizarre. So I couldn't wait for the morning. I go down to the Bodhi Tree bookstore. I go to the used book section. I go to the bookcase. I go to the shelf. I reach behind, and there's a book there. The book is called New Light on Therapeutic Energies, and out of print. And I go and I buy it and I take it home. And in chapter 3 is an article about Dinshaw Gadali and the spectrochrome system. And I go, wow, that's incredible. But chapter 4, the next chapter, would really change my life, because chapter 4 talked about something called the universal Rife microscope of Royal Rife. And he found frequencies to destroy 60 viruses, bacteria for 60 health problems. And this was back in the 1930s. Now, I had never heard of that. So I ended up calling a good friend of mine, Dr. Harry Lusk, 90 years old, Valley Presbyterian Hospital, board of director, practicing doctor. And I said, Harry, have you ever heard of something called the Rife microscope? And remember, this is a 90-year-old. He goes, oh, yeah, when I was a young man, I'm going, wow, that's going back now. They talked about this super microscope that had these properties. And I go, well, what else? And Harry says, some old geezer talked about it about 15 years ago. It's just funny when he's talking about an old geezer. And he said, this man talked about him having this Rife microscope. And I said, wow, that's incredible. And then Harry goes, well, I tried calling him over the years, about 8 years ago, but no one ever answered the phone. And I said, Harry, do you have that number? And he said, Steve, I've moved 3 times. There's no way. Well, guess what? The next morning, Harry's on the line. Steve, I go, Harry, what's the matter? I stepped out of bed, and on the floor is the man's telephone number. So I am a goofy Aquarian. I go, well, maybe your housekeeping was bad and it's been there all the time. And he goes, no way. It has not been there all the
Oh,
time. And he goes, I couldn't reach this number, but you have to promise me if someone answers and you're going, you'll take me. I call up, a man answers named John Crane. I said, hi, I'm interested. You have the right microscope. He goes, are you with the FBI, CIA? He starts mentioning all these things. I go, no, no, no. Now I started feeling weird because my nonprofit is called World Research Foundation, but we always call it WRF. I was afraid to mention that. I said, it's World Research. He goes, okay, you can come down to San Diego and come and visit me in 4 days. So I get back to Harry, I tell him, and Harry said, you promised you're going to take me. 4 days later, 90 years old, Harry's delivering a baby. I go, Harry, I'll call him up. I call up John Crane. I explain, okay, you can come 2 days from now. 2 days later, Harry's delivering another baby. I said, Harry, I love you. I'm going. Now, this microscope, anybody who's aware of it, it's on the internet. Nobody knows what happened to it, where it is. It's one of the most incredible stories in the history of medicine. A microscope 10 times more powerful in 1933 than what they're using even today.
wow.
And I go to San Diego, I meet John Crane. And 1 year later, I have it in my possession for 2 years. The
Oh my,
Universal Rife microscope. And
unbelievable.
and so you wanted a little story. Imagine I have many like that. Now, um, would it be strange if I popped out of my chair and didn't go out of camera and got something?
No, go ahead.
That way it proves it's real.
I think we all believe you. While he's doing that, I want to show you this book. And nothing happened. And then it says, but you can make it happen. And this book, it's not huge, but it is full of all these alternative healing modalities. I highly recommend it. Okay, here's the machine. Oh my goodness.
This is the Rife microscope. And here are the doctors. This is the original. Now, people can find this on the internet. This is the original photograph of the doctors in 1931 celebrating the end of disease and illness because they have found the frequencies to destroy viruses instantly. Now, you would think this would be the greatest discovery in the history of the world. Who who would not like us to be in physics? The pharmaceutical industry. And so within 3 years of this picture, all the doctors but four would claim they were never at a dinner party. They never heard of a cancer cure.
Mm.
They didn't know anything about it. But here is Rife's guest book. And
Oh
guess
my
what?
goodness.
Guess what? In this guest book, which is
Oh,
right, those doctors are in his guest book.
wow. And you have his guest book.
Yes, but also now am I making everybody dizzy? That's the
No,
question.
no, we're good. We're good. This is like a museum. It's more than a library. Look at this.
So this happens to be the Royal Rife frequency book of the 60 frequencies for the various diseases and illnesses, the original lab book. And in this lab book is the frequency for leprosy, typhoid fever, cancer, bubonic plague, catarrhal infections, tetanus, diphtheria,
Unbelievable.
anthrax. So
That is like more than worth its weight in gold. That's a
So this,
precious.
but I had to give you a good story because you said, please give an example of how your dream led you to something. So we have many things like this that the dreams have led us. I consider myself a caretaker, not an owner. I'm a caretaker of these materials. Um, for those people who want to know the true stories. Most of everything in here is original documentation and old books on alchemy. But this thing with the Rife microscope, and I've done shows on Gaia with Regina on Rife, but it goes on and on. I mean, I could keep you occupied for an entire day running back and forth, bringing original things. But um, I I just honor that we are guided to caretake
Yeah.
this type of materials and to make presentations um, of originals. Now, their Royal Rife with his frequencies cured people back in the 30s. Now, today, there's a lot of people running around, Rife frequency devices, Rife devices.
Yeah.
And I have been very vocal on many shows going, Royal Rife did not build any of those. He died in the 70s. He did not build any of these. I have the frequency book of 60 frequencies, and yet these people are advertising hundreds and thousands and Rife's love frequency, and it's all nonsense. But
Oh, really?
I am not the policeman of the world. I do not go out saying, unless somebody asks my opinion, and that's where someone should be careful saying, Steve, what do you think? Because again, having the original. So that's kind of a little offshoot, but there's many things like this.
Well, more than once I've thought it's kind of a miracle also that you're still alive and that that library exists
Oh, now
because we know,
that's another story.
okay, because we know what has been done to people. And so I hope there's copies of everything. I feel like this is the Library of Alexandria, and we
No,
want it
no,
to
no.
be.
I do have things off, but if you were in Southern California, imagine this. During the Met Fly incident in the early 1990s, the state of California flew helicopters over various cities and put malathion poison over the cities to kill a pest before it could make its way to Sacramento. The idea being, if they put pesticide on the crops in Sacramento, different countries wouldn't import it. So somebody got the idea, let's let's blanket the entire state of California and get rid of this medfly. So they advertise it's safe, but keep your car covered and your dog in, but it's really safe. Well, I'm visiting my office in Stuttgart, Germany. I come back and I see some white powder on my barbecue. So I shake it. And the next morning I wake up and I really felt sick. So this was an ex-wife. I said to my ex-wife, "What what was that powder?" "Oh, the helicopters came over with the malathion." I said this was supposed to be safe. So I got a little upset because I got upset in those days, and unlike now, but I gathered everything I could on malathion, something called Medline search. There wasn't an internet like this. And I gather all this information and I go, whoa, this is really something here. So I contact my local representative in LA. And 2 days, I sent some studies in, and 2 days later, I get a call from the city of LA. "We want you to be our malathion expert." I'm going, what? I don't know anything about pesticides. I just gathered information. That doesn't make me an expert. Well, we've contacted the head physician for the state of California who's done all of these commercials, and we want you to go head to head with him. I'm going, whoa. So I go
Wow.
back to my office in Stuttgart and I interview the head agricultural people in Austria, Germany, Italy, Russia, get them on tape, come back, give that to the state of California, and they go, oh my God. Every one of those countries go, this is being put over people. This is forbidden. Now, to hear a place like Russia going, we care about our people and we don't pesticide. So now I am head to head in front of CBS and ABC with Dr. Siddiqui, the head physician. Are you claiming this is perfectly safe? Yes, we've done thousands and thousands of studies, he says. I said, well, that's very interesting because as of last night at 6 p.m., there was only 1,011 articles in the entire world on malathion. So how did you do thousands and thousands? And he goes, well, you think you know? I said, would you like the titles of all those? Yes. So I put a box under the table in this LA City Council chambers and I pull it out. Here, the man says, well, those are just titles. So I said, do you want the abstracts? Now, an abstract is a summation of a full article. He goes, yes. I lean to the other side and I put it on the table, just this massive box. And I see this little sweat bead. He and I are right now. The sweat bead goes. And I said, well, here's, he goes, those are only abstracts and they may not tell the full story. And then he goes, and I said, well, do you want the full studies? And I made a move, but I didn't have it. He goes, oh, I'm not, listen to this. I'm not qualified to read a full study. And I'm going, but
What?
you're qualified to make TV commercials? So, up to my testimony, LA Council had voted, there was 7 Republicans, 7 to 6 to allow spraying. After my testimony, they voted 13-0 to condemn and stop the state. So I go back to my seat. My ex-wife is there, and these 2 men in black suits like to hear these stories come up to me, lean in my face and go, "You're not playing the game. We do not like being embarrassed in the public. We know where you live." And I said, "Are you threatening me?" They didn't say a word. I said, I'll tell you what, I've got to do what I have to do. You're going to do, but I'm going to warn you right now, you be very careful if you confront me. So I think they got a little shocked. And of course, the bravado of a young man, you're lucky if it doesn't get called to task. And they went away. Now, after that, I get called by Orange County. "Steve, would you come and talk? We've got the agricultural head man here in all the cities of Orange County." So I went over there. They voted unanimously to condemn the spraying. And the Aggie commissioner, after his testimony, comes up to me in my face and he goes, "Thank you."
Wow.
Because he knew. Now, the city of LA contacts the state of California, stop the spraying, no more helicopters. And the governor in the state says, "Guess what? No more money for your roads." Now, we're talking the city of LA against the state. And they didn't know what to do. And somebody said, "Well, let's contact the EPA." Now, why they weren't involved before, I don't know. The
Yeah.
EPA looked at the studies and told the state. So we stopped the malathion. But no, I was threatened for not playing the game. So yes, I'm aware, and my library is full of people who weren't as fortunate and as lucky as I was. They either ended up in jail or dead, but I'm preserving and caretaking all of their data.
Amazing. Just amazing. Wow. I mean, that's what I mean. This is a huge service to humanity because to have all of this in one place, anybody who just tries to research, I have this new thing cropped up in my life or whatever, and it's just mind-boggling, and you've got it all categorized. And so on a particular disease, there are multiple
Yeah,
approaches,
of
and
course.
and they've been successful, you know.
Correct.
That's what's so beautiful.
And they're from medical health specialists. But if it goes against the grain of what's in power, we my foundation, World Research Foundation, put on 3 world congresses. In 1986, we flew out the chairman of the Nobel Assembly in medicine. You don't get any higher. He shrank breast cancer tumors using electricity, and he couldn't get the time of day. I flew him out, and Los Angeles Times called him an alternative medical practitioner. Dr. Nordstrom is the discoverer of needle biopsy, a top radiologist, and because he's in electricity, he's an alternative medical practitioner. So the LA Times really belittled him. Well, he didn't want to deal with anyone, but I got a call from the news program 2020 that was
Mhm,
big I don't know if they're still around, but in the 80s, they
mhm.
wanted to interview him. Well, they interview him 2 years later at our 88 conference. The day of the conference, that night, they played the Nordstrom video and they interviewed these doctors from the Mayo Clinic and Harvard. "What do you think about this man?" "Well, it's electricity. We don't know anything about it, and we don't do anything new." Can you imagine? But if it was testicular cancer, maybe they would have been a little bit more
Yeah,
involved
funny
in
how that works. Yeah.
yeah, we don't have time to learn anything new. So Nordstrom goes to China, gives his patent to the country, 5,300 MDs in China treat 9,000 patients with a cure rate of 80%.
Wow.
In this country, you cannot use it until you've done radiation, chemotherapy, and surgery. And by that time, you don't have a body left.
Yeah.
Then you can do the Nordstrom therapy.
Oh, God. It's just crazy.
Wait a minute. We can't end on this downer,
No,
though.
no, no, we're not done. We're going to have
Oh,
questions.
good, because
We're going
that's
to
a
do Q&A. No,
okay. That's
okay.
a downer.
Yeah, that's a downer. We're not going to end that way. So let's have some questions. Folks, do you have any?
Maybe they're in trance. Maybe
Maybe
they are.
they might be. You know how to put your hands up. Uh, I mean, literally, you could ask any question from sports to
Right.
deep spiritual states to dream worlds to poetry.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I don't have lotto numbers. I wish I did. Lotto numbers.
I get asked the same thing sometimes. I don't do that either.
And
Uh,
again, if there's no questions, I'll just keep rambling and talking. I can we can come up with stories endlessly.
well,
So,
here's
oh,
here's Jan. She has a question.
that's
Hi,
serious. Yeah,
what a wonderful service you're doing and a gift that you are, and what a great ride tonight. Thank you.
thank you,
Do
dear.
people can people come and visit your library?
It's by invitation only now. I used to have this in a two-story building. Um, And then people stopped coming to libraries because of the cell phones and the internet. And we moved it from our building to a special room we built in our home. Um, I attempt to find out what people are interested in. If someone is interested in a topic, I'm going to answer your question like this. There is 14,000 physical books and 42,000 PDFs going back from 1400 to 1929. So if somebody contacts me, I will send information to them for free. I do not charge for this part. I will send it to them for free. And if we can answer their question, because there's a lot of people who would come, but then they don't leave. They don't
Ah,
always want, they don't leave. And it is more of a research. But if somebody contacts me, Jan, I'm very happy to share and find out. But it isn't like a public
Hmm.
library as such. It's more research. And I might add, I have two websites. One is called lesscomplicated.net, and I have 154 free PDFs on everything we've talked about and more that people can download at no cost. So I try to make it easy, but it isn't that people don't come here. I just want to know if they're just looking, because I will absolutely guarantee somebody walks through this door and they're in shock. They don't make more than three of the tiles here, and they're like a deer in headlights. They've gone from, I couldn't find something, to, it's too much. What am I going to do? But what humbles me as a person is this. About 5 or 6 years ago, a woman comes with her 7-year-old daughter. She comes in, oh my God, you've got theosophy and alchemy. This is the greatest place I've ever been. And this little girl tugs at my pants and goes, Sir, where's your section on pirates? I go, I said, I don't have. So we can always be humbled no matter where we're coming from.
A very quick follow-up.
Of course.
I'm not interested in pirates, but I am an astrologer. Do you have astrological works?
Here's what I'm going to do, Jan. You will send me your email,
Okay.
and I will send you the PDFs of 100 books on astrology going back to the late 1700s.
Fantastic. Thank
And
you.
you will, and because of who you are and that you are a special friend of Hope, there is no charge for that. We'll make sure that file opens up, and these will be astrology books like you've never had, and we're going to build up that library for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
No,
Amazing.
thank you.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Gary, yeah.
Hi, Dr. Ross. Thank you so much, Hope,
Steve,
for finding this gem. Okay. Hi, Steve. So it will come as no surprise to our friends on this call that I'm interested in whether there are two questions. One is, as a composer and someone that uses music for neuroaesthetic purposes, in other words, shifts of state. Do you have any resources that talk about the healing power of music? Is one
a
question.
lot. Yes, there are a lot of physical books here. Books before up to 1929 are in public domain. Books from 1930 on, and that changes every year, are not. And so most of the musical research that, Gary, that you're talking about has taken place after 1930. So we don't have as many PDFs. But if you, again, want to contact me, I do have people who I am aware of who have worked in this area um, in a very proficient manner. It's possible you might end up knowing them, but if you don't or you haven't heard of him, we can make some direct contacts for you, right to them. But music, color and light,
That would be great.
sound, music, I love. I think they are that is the beauty of the therapies that are here with virtually no downside. So, Gary, I like the field you're in,
Yeah.
and if you contact me, we'll see what we can get for you.
Amazing.
I'm sure Hope will then give you my email because I'd love to send you a gift of some of my work if you're interested. That would be great. I have
Wait a
one more
minute,
question.
I'll clean up an area right now if you're sending me stuff. I love to receive.
Oh,
That is
it's
how
all
we
cloud.
operate.
It's cloud based.
Well, I've got computers
It's in the
here.
cloud.
Well, if you can bring it down to the cloud and make it rain in Sedona, we're going to put it in this library. And I've got a lot of databases on computers.
And
Yeah. Well, I'm lucky to be the one that Hope loves working with my. Well, you're going to say Hope.
yeah, I was just going to say, Gary and I work together. Jan and I work together, but Gary and I work together. His music is my music of choice when I do my guided channeled meditations,
Beautiful.
because it puts you immediately into a spacious state. It's really
Yes,
gorgeous stuff. So I'm glad that you two will make a connection
But
together.
absolutely.
thank you for that. I do have one other question that's rather
Of course.
nerdy, which is, I don't know if you did you ever see the Thrive movies by the sense by Foster and Kimberly Gamble? Did you ever see that? And the first one came out, they talked about the right machine, and I was always
Y-
curious if the
yes, and I
frequency
met
that he
I met
found. Oh,
yes, I met Foster Gamble at a conference, and he appeared interested. And why would he not be interested if I have the original materials? But sometimes people talk a good story. And when it comes to following through, um, you don't hear from them. I mean, I am so easy to reach, and I hope I'm not threatening with this bald head. So there's no reason for them not to
Well,
follow
I'm
through. But
sure he was. I'm sure he was very. I'm very close with him because I did the music for both of those movies, and I'm
wow.
sure as much of the Right Machine that he probably was just too busy. But what I wanted to ask was, were the frequencies below or above the perceptible range of human beings, or was it in the full spectrum beyond both within the range of our perceptibilities or not, or
It
all the
was
above?
above it was above the range of the human ear, but not
Wow,
impossible to create.
Oh man, we have to do a whole
wow,
talk on that.
and why and that I don't understand why and how they succeeded in getting everybody their knowledge finally successful. I mean, I know that there are dark forces, but that's outrageous. I don't want to dominate, no, but because I know other people might, I'd see. So thank you, Stephen. I look forward to seeing
Absolutely.
you
You know what?
and finding out more about who you know.
You're one of my new best friends. So we're going to be doing more correspondence by email or by telephone. And I'll certainly go into a little bit more detail, Gary. I again, I made a vow with the spiritual world back when I was 24 years old, and this was the vow. You cannot interfere with anybody's path unless they give you permission, whether it's the health, the spiritual, financial. If they give you permission, you give them everything you have and you give them the world. And in exchange, we will always be with you and we will be supporting you. And I've stuck
Mm,
with that for more than 50 years. Even though I may see, and I don't know if you people will understand or not, I cannot interfere unless somebody gives me permission. And if they don't, I sit and I watch. Now, one time somebody said to me, "Steve, do you believe in Star Trek?" Okay, they gave me permission. Or somebody may say, "Steve, why is it you and I buy our shoes from the same shoe store, but your feet don't seem to hurt?" They're asking, "What is my philosophy of life?" Then that to me is okay, they've opened the door. But if somebody doesn't, I watch, because perhaps in the great scheme of things, it isn't the right time for that person, for the world, or for me.
Yeah, yeah. It's
got it.
interesting. I made a similar vow at a similar age. Um,
There's
yeah.
some nice hearts floating by.
Thank
By
you.
the
Aren't
way,
they?
who's ever hearting these, that's wonderful.
We have another question from Judy.
Yes.
I've enjoyed this evening so much. I was just curious as to the protocol that you followed for healing your knee from the Popular Mechanics magazine that you saw.
Yes. Well, it was very, very, very simplistic in that it was a continuous use of hot and cold. And being 19 years old, I alternated the heat and the cold 19 hours out of 24. But I also did something else. I visualized all of that time myself running 100 meters and crossing the tape ahead hour after hour after hour after hour. So here's the real question. Was it the hot and cold? Was it the thinking, the visualizing? For me, it doesn't matter because it worked. And I've had people go, well, we really don't know. And I said, no, we really don't. Now, this part of my life, at this time of my life, I would say it was more the visualization. There was a wonderful pitcher named Sandy Koufax of the Los Angeles. Boy, Hope, if you're shaking your head, you may be a little more mature in age than I
I
think you
am.
look.
I'm more mature than you might think. Yes,
Because if you're knowing Sandy Koufax, and he
I
used
do.
to ice his arm out, that's when the pitchers started icing their arm after every start, Judy. But it really, I believe, was the visualization where I tapped into an area that even though the physician for the Rams, Dodgers, Lakers, Ducky Drake of UCLA, and Drake Stadium is named after that trainer. They both said, no surgery, no run. No surgery, you can't compete. I missed 4 weeks of training and end up running at a national level. I believe it was the thought that made it happen.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Great question. I'm glad you asked that, Judy. Um, I heard a story the other day about a boy who grew up in the countryside, in a southern climate. So there were lizards everywhere. And he observed the lizards losing their tails and then growing them back. And then something happened to his arm, and it either had to be amputated or, something happened where he lost his arm. In his mind, it would grow back just like the lizard's tail. And it did.
Of course. We're only limited
Yes.
by our belief system. It was Emerson that said, when I find narrow viewpoints, I find narrow reading. But let's expand that. If I have limited exposure, that is all I'm aware of, is limitation. That is why when you inundate yourself in a topic, in a subject, you are then telling the universe you want to know even more. And my belief system is that when we look at the Akashic records throughout the cosmos, anybody who ever dealt in any topic, electricity, magnetism, thought, whatever it is, everything is stored in these databases in the etheric. If you align yourself with those, you have access to all wisdom and knowledge.
Mhm.
And don't for a second, because you see someone on TV or you go to a conference, don't for a second believe that they are any different or better than you. You have access to everything everybody else does.
Yes.
It's whether or not you want to tune into that.
Yes.
And it only is just by doing it. Now, I do know we're not going to stay here for 3 hours because it's later for Hope. And thus, I have a philosophy called LEFL, LEFL. It stands for laughter, excitement, fun, and love. And when someone comes to me with a health problem, I check their levelometer. When was the last time you laughed? Laugh. Let me see. What do you do for excitement and fun? Oh, work. What? You've come to me because you have a problem from your work. What about love? Do you have a passion for anything? Now, when people come to me with a full levelometer, we're joking around because they don't have a health problem. So LEFL is very, very important. And it's not unusual. When I used to do more health consulting, I would tell someone, you need to go miniature golfing, or some people call it putt-putt. They go, what? You gave this sophisticated therapy for, no, you need to go back, walk in the grass, have fun, and be like a child again because you've lost contact with what is really important and what is the balm of life. The balm of life is being in nature and humor and love. And if you do that, you can overcome anything. I have seen, I've been in this field now for 55 years, from 22 to 77. I have seen things all over the world. I have been a party to instantaneous healings through my spirits. Nothing is impossible. We just have to raise our awareness up. We have to get out of this fear based reality that we've done. And it reminds me of a cute little story that's been told for a long time. A pilgrim was leaving Constantinople and the plague was coming in. And the pilgrim goes, "Whoa, why are you here?" And the plague says, "I have come for 5,000 souls." 8 months later, the pilgrim is coming back to Constantinople and the plague is leaving, but 50,000 people died. So the pilgrim says to the plague, "I thought you were here for only 5,000 souls." And the plague said, "That's all I took. Fear took the rest."
Mm. Mm.
So it's our fearful aspects, this fear generated culture, which is by design. It is
Yes,
truly by
yes,
design
yes.
that we need to, how do we say, transcend that
Mhm.
and look at the beauty and love and the spiritual context and know that love and who we are much stronger than anything from that fear vibration.
Beautiful, beautifully said, Stephen. Thank you so much for that reminder. I've been talking a lot about in my weekly newsletters. I talk a lot about joy and maintaining that even in the face of all the other stuff. That's our job right now. But you just said it so beautifully. Well, I think we are at a good stopping place. Although I just want to jump into that library right now and just, hang out for a month. Just don't mind me. I'll get a little
Okay,
pillow, I'll put it on the floor. This has really been fantastic. I thank you so much for your time, for your thoughts, for your
of course.
heart, and for all you're doing.
It's been fun, and again, thank you so much, and I thank everybody. I see you on the top of the screen, and it's been nice when I see heads shaking. Yes, nobody wanted to throw anything, so I consider it a successful journey. That everybody is giggling and laughing, so it's good. And I feel successful whether one person shows up. If somebody is left with a little bit more than what they came to the show with, then we know it's been successful.
Well, I
And
know
thank
that
you.
this has been, but thank you. Thank you. And thank you everybody for coming. This was really fun and educational, and it's just always so nice to have a great audience. So love you a lot, as you know. And until the next time, I will see you. We are signing off. Please like and subscribe if you had a good time. Bye bye, everybody. Stephen, I'll catch up with you later.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Mwah.